Hi everyone. So in the last video we talk about what you can expect if you are starting as a fresher and as a ETL developer in a project. What all things you can expect. And in the last video I shared my experience that like 11 plus years back when I started as a fresher in a company and I was put in a project as a ETL developer, right, as a fresher, right? So how first few weeks were and what all activities I did and what was my very first task I was assigned, right, as a ETL developer. So I shared my first hand experience, how was it for me. And I'm not saying that it can be true for everyone, but you will find some similarities, right? So if you are starting as a ETL developer, as a fresher in your career, that video can definitely help you. So before we proceed with today's video, right, which is about first few months as a ETL developer, right, I just want to quickly recap about the first few weeks, which is typically 4 to 6 weeks, when you have joined a project as a fresher. What all you can expect, right? So the very first thing is raise access requests. So as soon as you join a project and you will be assigned to a team lead or a manager or maybe a senior software engineer, right? The first thing you have to do is you have to raise access request, right? So like it could be access request related with some development environment, QA, production, right? Also some ID, your user ID will be created in the system. So the very first thing is you have to raise a request, access request for it, right? Because unless you get access to the environments, you cannot contribute to the project. The second thing we talked about is raising the software request. So once a desktop or a laptop is assigned to you, you must get some software installed. And typically, people don't get admin privileges on their desktop and laptop. So you have to raise a request to the team, network team, or whichever team takes care of the hardware. You have to raise request to them that in my desktop I want these softwares. Typical software can be like your SQL editor if you're starting as a ETL developer, right? So you will need an SQL editor. Like if you're like, for me it was Teradata, so I want a Teradata SQL assistant on my system. And if you are working on other tools like Informatica, data stage, you may want those clients installed on your system, right? Similarly for code editor, if you may prefer Notepad plus plus or Sublime Text or any other editor for writing the SQL queries, and even SQL Assistant, right? And similarly for you may need an FTP client like WinSCP or FileZilla, whatever you are comfortable or your team is using. So try to ask your team lead or the senior members in the project what all softwares are required and raise the software request. And the third part, which is actually the most important, is as a fresher starting in a new project, you must meet your team members, right? And then you should also see what are their roles. Like you will meet somebody who is a senior ETL developers, like who has say 1 plus years or 2 plus years experience. So you can meet them and you can understand that, okay, if you are following the same path, maybe 2 years down the line you will become a senior ETL developer, and what task he is doing, maybe you will be doing the same task 2 years from now, right? So that's why this part is actually very important. And you will meet the QA people who will be testing your code, and then you will meet managers and team leads, and then you will also meet the DBAs, right? What all admin tasks they are doing. So I'll suggest that for the first few weeks, this should be your prime goal, right? That all the access requests you should raise for the software request, meet your team members, try to know who all are part of your project, right? So this it was a recap of my last video. If you want to hear all about my personal experience as the first few weeks as a ETL developer, I'll recommend go back and see my previous video of this series, right? Now coming to this video, right? So as part of this video, I wanted to cover how first few months as a ETL developers was for me, right? So when I started my career, and when I say first few months, typically like ranging from 2 to 4 months, how it was for me, right? And I just want to share 3 points, three main points here also. And mind it, it is not limited to it. There are much more activities you may have to do but as a ETL developer and your 2 to 4 months, these are the three things which I think you must pay attention to, and that should help you in settling in the project and contributing to the project, right? So the very first thing is learn the technology, obviously, right? So when you are coming straight from the campus, right, and even when you will join a company, right, it is not mandatory that you will get the same technology during your training, right? And the same technology is used in the project to which you are allocated. Like in my case, I had training on informatica, and I think oracle it was, right? But my first project was in teradata, right? So although you can say that at the back end it was like business intelligence only and SQL thing and data warehouse thing, but coming to the technology it is not same, right? So it may happen to you, and don't get alarmed, right? It is pretty normal in the current scenario that if you are a fresher and a project needs some resources, right? And then if you are sitting on the bench, you are available, you will be tagged to that project, and it is perfectly fine, and it is actually good for you also, because you will start the project, right? And you will start learning something. So the very first thing I'll recommend is in your first few months, typically 2 to 4 months, you should start learning the technology, right? So for that, what you have to do is you have to talk to your lead, right, or your supervisor, and understand what are technologies used in the project. Like in my project, if I can recall it, it was primarily Teradata which was used for developing the data warehouse. There were some projects which were also using data stage, right? So it's not like I'll start with the data stage, I'll start with Teradata, I'll start with everything. It is not like that. So I have to discuss with my supervisor, because they have a better plan for you, right? Because you are just starting your career, you may not have that much visibility. But they have that because they are doing the resource estimation, right? How many resources are required for the upcoming projects, and they have visibility about the pipeline projects as well. So my first recommendation is talk to your supervisor and ask him that what are the main technologies used in the project and which one should you pick, right? So in my case, like, it was obviously the Teradata was recommended to me, so I started learning the technology. Now coming to the learning the technology, there are many options you can try, right? Nowadays, internet is the best resource, and YouTube videos are the best resource, right? So if you want to learn anything, you can just Google it, follow some tutorials, and try to learn it, right? In my case specifically, at that time internet did not have much information on Teradata. I'm talking about 11 12 years back. So main source for information was Teradata forums, right? And then the PDF, the long PDF, is the Teradata Corporation shares. So going through that was pretty time taking, I should say, right? And it was also pretty vast. So what you can do is you can limit yourself by having a discussion with the supervisor that what all in the technology, also what all are the main things which are used mostly in the project, and then you can focus on that. So talking about me, I understand that in my case it was the staging area, and next I'll talk more about that in some time. So it was a staging area where primarily we were creating the fast load and multi load and the TPT load scripts to load data files into staging tables in Teradata, right? So, so the first point is learn the technology. Discuss with your supervisor. Understand the technology. If the technology is very vast, try to limit it. Come up with some few points which you must cover so that you can start contributing to the project and start learning those things, right? Okay, second point, open for the ad hoc task. It is also very rare that once you are in a project and it's like 2 months for you in the project, you will not get 100% dedicated time just sitting there and doing some trainings or doing online trainings and learning technology, right? Obviously you will be given some task, right? But as a fresher, everybody understands that, okay, the output may not be as quick as they want, so they may not give you a very critical task, right? And chances of introducing a human error in the code, or maybe overlooking some small but important aspect is possible, right? So you won't be given a very critical task. Expect to get some ad hoc task from your team, right? And it may come from your immediate supervisor, or maybe people sitting on left and right who are senior to you. It may come from them as well. So some of the tasks which I can recall is, I was given some Excel sheets, right, where I have to apply some formulas and come up with the proper pivot tables, do some lookups, identify which tables are missing in the list, right, from the superset of the table list, that kind of work. Also, some of the tasks were like, say, we used to create technical design documents, right, for every project. So I was given some technical design documents and I was asked to fix the templates, proofread it, and that also helped me in understanding the project, right? So one was like, I'm fixing the template of a Word document as per the whatever is the convention, right? We were following the template we were following. So I have to make sure that the document aligns with that template, which was mutually agreed between the client and the company. Also, at the same time, when I'm reading those technical design documents, uh, I start like, it helps you in understanding what the project is all about, right? So in a way, that is actually very good, right? And it could be like fixing some PowerPoint slides also, right? So my point here is, just open for some ad hoc task. It's very rare that you will be just sitting for next 2 3 months tagged to a project and just learning, right? There will definitely be some ad hoc tasks coming your way. Definitely. It can be as simple as that, okay, here is a SQL file. The queries are written not in a proper format, just format the queries, right? So it can be anything. So be open for ad hoc task, and any ad hoc task which you'll do, you'll learn something for sure, right? So that's my second point. Coming to the third point, get to know the project, right? So the first point and third points are somewhat related. So when I say get to know the project, is kind of an extension to the first point. So once you slightly get hangover of the technology, you know what you have to learn, what you have to understand, and at the same time you are doing some ad hoc task, right? So whenever somebody is giving you an ad hoc task, mind it, they may make your impression from the output, right? So even if it's a small task and if you have done it very well, they will feel comfortable working with you, right? And even if that small task you miss it, or you kind of a dislike it, that okay, I don't want to work on Excel, or I don't want to fix the template of Word document, if that is your attitude, so people will make that as your first impression, right? And why that is not a very good thing is because in future, when you will be like, say, 6 months in the project, right, and there are new projects coming up, and then the team lead will ask for a few more resources, that okay, say I need 10 people, and say 3 fresher and 4 senior people, like that. And if he's looking for fresher, he may not want you at that time, because you were reluctant in doing some task earlier which he assigned to you, right? So my point here is, the second point actually is very important. Whatever the task given to you, accept that task for the first at least when you are starting your career, accept it, do it to your level best, and share it with the concerned person, right? And if you have any challenges, or if you don't understand it, ask it multiple times. Don't do it in the wrong manner, right? If it is not accurate, that is okay, right? People tend to do mistakes, especially at the start of the career, and which is acceptable also. But don't be reluctant in opting for ad hoc task, right? Because when this third point comes into the picture, right, you have to discuss with your lead and managers and try to understand that, okay, for a single client, it may be 100 people team, right, working for a single client, maintaining and developing their data warehouse. And few people will be working on some project, and few people will be working on some other projects, right? So you get to know that, okay, what are the sub teams, right? When I say sub teams, in the bigger team there are small teams which are very focused on delivering a small project or a small module, right? So you get in touch with your leads and your managers and try to understand what are the existing projects. At the same time, you may want to understand what are the upcoming projects, right? And from the upcoming project, you can understand that what are the skill set required, right? Whether, say, in my case, when I asked about some upcoming projects, I realized that it has to do more with the staging area. which will require writing fast load scripts, which will require writing multi load scripts, right? So, and may not require data stage. So that helped me focusing purely on the load utilities, Teradata load utilities, and I could ignore data stage for some time because it's not coming up in next few projects, right? And I can focus totally on those Teradata load utilities for now. And when that project starts, right, in the next quarter, I can voluntarily ask my supervisor to put me in that project and I can start contributing to it, right? So get in touch with your managers, try to understand what are the existing projects and where you can fit and what are the upcoming projects. If something excites you, be very vocal. At the start of the career you may not have that much understanding, so it may not be very applicable. Like 2 to 4 months is too early to understand the project holistically, right? In and out. But yeah, from technology perspective you can at least do that, that okay, I'm learning this technology, and if the upcoming projects are on this technology, I can join that project, right? So you can do that, and that will actually help you, right, in getting a good project and getting a new good team as well, right? So yeah guys, this is all I thought of covering today in this video. I can share some of my personal experience, like first few months. As I said in my last video, very first task was of a unit testing where I was asked to cook some dummy data, right? And so that the script runs end to end and target gets some data, it should not be empty. Coming to the 2 to 4 months, yeah, okay, one more thing I can tell you, that in 2 to 4 months, right, you can expect to witness a production release, right, and the code deployment in production. So that is a kind of a special activity for a fresher, right? Because for the first time you will see whatever the code team has built is going into the production, and for the next 2 3 days it is monitored very carefully that nothing's break on production, right? So if it happens that you are a part of a team and there is a production activity going on, I'll suggest, even if none of your code is going into the production, right, I'll suggest participate in that activity. At least be a observer and a listener and witness how this activity works, code deployment, right? And try, and I'm sure you will learn something. Some for some of the people the code may break in the production. How they're resolving that situation, right? Whether they are getting any glass break approvals to fix the code there, or if the code fails they just revert it back to the original code and the release is pushed to the next cycle. So all these things, right, will definitely open your horizon of seeing how the project works end to end, right? So in my case also this thing happened where I was part of a project, and although none of my code was going, I was still working on some ad hoc task, right? It was just like 4 5 months in the project, and I was learning the Teradata load utilities, typically the fast load and multi load. And I did ask my supervisor to have a session where they can explain us, and they did, and that really helped me. But coming back to this production deployment, right, there was this activity and none of my code was going, and it used to generally happen at the odd hours, India time, right? So I was there in the office, and with my other team members whose code was going, and the code deployment team was separate, so they deployed the code in the production, ran some sanity checks, everything worked fine. And the next few days code ran, data loaded, it was verified by the data, and then client sent an appreciation email, and then I learned a new word, and that was zero defect delivery. And I was like, what does that mean? So it was, in my project it was a big deal because the project on which I was working, it was pretty complex in terms of the business logic which we have to implement. And if anybody is delivering a zero defect delivery project, right, his code is zero defect, and he's deploying the perfect code which satisfied all the business rules. So we used to get good appreciation email from the client, right? So that was one thing which I noticed, that okay, there is something like zero defect delivery, and client as well as my entire team appreciates it a lot. And if you happen to uh, deliver a code which is zero defect, right, everybody will, you will be in good cards, right? Everybody will have good words for you, and that actually helps in your appraisal time, right? So I'll not stretch this topic. Maybe in next few videos I may pick this topic again and we'll discuss more on that. But for now, yeah, 2 to 4 months as a fresher ETL developer in the project. Make sure that you understand what is the tech stack used in the project, and if it is very wide, try to restrict it. Have a discussion with your managers, and even if that you feel that it is going to be pretty vast and it may take few weeks or even months to cover that, right, have a discussion again. And even in that technology, try to limit yourself. Like in my case, it was eventually Teradata, so I could rule out data stage. And then in Teradata also, btech and the SQL part was I could park for some time, because the focus was totally on the fast load and multi-load. So I can focus on fast load and multi-load, and few weeks is sufficient time to understand what are these load utilities, how it works, right? And be open for ad hoc tasks. You will get a lot of ad hoc tasks. You won't be sitting idle all the time. Definitely you will get some ad hoc tasks, and be open for that. And with every ad hoc task you will learn something, and you will make new team members, right? So you'll meet new team members, and you will learn something from them as well, right? So yeah, that's it. Hope you like this video. I'll continue to make few more videos in this series, life of a ETL developer. I'll keep sharing my experience, how my past 12 years experience as a ETL developer has been, right? And mind it, it is not something which I can generalize 100% and say that every ETL developer will go through this career path. But yeah, this is my personal experience, right? And and I feel that it fits most of the, at least in India, right? If you are in a service based company, right, then it fits this path, right? You will find definitely a lot of similarities with whatever you are experiencing and whatever my personal experience is. All right, guys, thanks a lot for watching this video. Thanks. Bye bye.